I'm not smiling today, Mike. All right, never mind.
Howdy, all. Well, I'm sure many of you have many extra bags of Halloween candy sitting around, and if my place or when I lived at home, my mother would buy so many extra bags that we would have Halloween candy until probably after Christmas, and everybody would just go in every day and get a $100,000 bar or something like that. Did you get any trick-or-treaters, Ross, in your neighborhood?
Zero. And I'm in a residential neighborhood, although there's a lot of college houses by too. But you know when I knew I was going to get zero? When I saw that they were shutting down like the main street here for a parade. And I said, well, clearly that's that. So I did the smart thing. I never want to have that excess candy either. Look, I like candy, don't get me wrong. But my mother already told me she overbought. So I know who's getting that candy. I'm getting part of that. So I basically just bought a large bag of Tootsie Roll Pops, like minis, right? So they, that'll last. $3.50 was my investment. I got zero trick-or-treaters. I feel like that's a win.
Yeah, I usually buy like one bag of candy, and the last few years, it seems to be the norm now is neighborhood parties, street parties, and parades. It's I think for
trick or treating right there.
Yeah, for I think for safety reasons and convenience more than anything, the door-to-door trick-or-treating has gone by the wayside. I was listening to
I would have gone to the door. Like people would have loved to. Little kids love to see like a gigantic dog, but
yeah, true. I know that like listening to like Canadian radio and listening to like some of the them talking about trick-or-treating, just as much for the kids passing out candy, it's like the adults, they're giving, they had to, I think it was one of the TSN broadcasters said he had to make a run to the LCBO to buy a couple cases of beer because the tradition is you give the kids the candy, you give the adults a beer.
So if that were true, there would be more adults going out there, I feel.
Yeah, so it's like a bar crawl almost like.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, I went out last night to enjoy a couple of the NHL games, which we'll talk about in a minute.
It's good that you get out, Mike. I always say you should get out more.
And the World Series. And have to say that the person who was sitting a couple seats down from me that was pumping their fist and clapping their hands every time the Astros did anything positive, I really would like to see them tonight just to do one of these. Because the Dodgers got to Justin Verlander in the 6th inning, and the controversial thing in this game, Russ, was pulling Verlander
95 pitches, in
the top of the 7th, down 2-1 after he'd been dominant for a pinch hitter. The game only ended 3-1. Peterson hits a home run, but the way Verlander was pitching, it was questionable. What did you think of that call by
it was questionable. I felt like that was a questionable call, but I will say this. Does that mean now in Game 7 he could pitch an inning? It might. Mm-hmm. Also, I can't kill A.J. Hinch considering they didn't score any runs after, so he would have lost anyhow.
Right.
So now here's the thing about – but again, in defense of Dave Roberts, who pulled Rich Hill ridiculously early, it worked out for him. And so this is where I think Dave Roberts gets way too much surus. People could look up that word, Tsurus, I believe it is, for the kind of managing he does. I think he's doing a good job. I do. Now, the thing about the Dodgers is in my family, there's still Dodger angst because my mother grew up a Brooklyn Dodger fan. She watched Jackie Robinson play at Ebbets Field. That was their neighborhood. She lived in that neighborhood, and then they moved out. It was Robert Moses' fault. It wasn't, the Dodgers' fault, but They still moved, right? And so the Dodgers were never the same in my family since then, so I can never root for the Dodgers.
Yeah, the great Robert Moses, who made the waterfront in downtown Buffalo a bunch of friggin' highways.
Yeah, and that's what he did. It's Robert Moses. It's the craziest thing. From Buffalo all the way down to Long Island, in different areas, there's a Robert Moses highway or freeway or something, and it's just a joke.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is, the highway in Niagara Falls, which is named the Robert Moses Parkway or Highway.
Yeah.
I don't think he had anything to do with it. I think it was named after him, in honor of him.
Yeah, there's no honor there.
Yeah, there isn't. And honestly, when you look at other municipalities around the country that you have property that's worth millions and millions and billions of dollars, like waterfront property. In Buffalo, you've got highway after highway after highway right along the water, and businesses put there. I mean, it was basically a waste, and I don't think it did anything great for Buffalo. So anyway, we will have a Game 7 tonight. I think all
Game
hands
sevens in any sport are amazing. I've covered, I want to say 3 or 4 in the Stanley Cup. I think 3, and then I covered the Rangers in one against Tampa that time, and I covered the Rangers against Pittsburgh was a Game 7 in Pittsburgh. So I've covered quite a few Game 7s, and there's nothing like it because they're very unforgiving. Just even the most minute mistake can equal a loss. Now, I know some football fans will say, well, that's the Super Bowl. But this is different. This is different because it's all leading up to it. The Super Bowl is one game where it is very fluky. This is a series where you could see that there's a lot of things that led up to this.
The only thing in football that comes close to this, and it's not 7 games, but when you're playing, like, say, for example, the Bills back in the day, they played the AFC Championship game against Miami, a team that they had faced at home and on the road because they were in the same division. It's sort of got like a series type of feel, even though it's not all in a row. It was during the season. But they played them at home. They played them on the road. Now they're playing them in the playoffs. There's sort of a finality there, and this was – I think similar, but when you play 7 games in a row, hockey, baseball, basketball, I mean, animosity builds up, tension builds up, rivalry builds up, the familiarity of playing against the same team. You start to know, how to get players out or what bothers them. So that'll all come to the surface tonight. And honestly, I mean, and not to get into the controversy, the thing I am looking forward to, not that he's going to plunk him, but Darvish pitching against Gurriel tonight. The crowd.
Yeah, he won't plunk him. He's too much of a gentleman. I got to say, his response was amazing. And even though I've given Darvish some knocks on his pitching, as a human being, he's clearly a number one guy. Like, it's just, I really appreciated the way he handled that. But all right, let's get to hockey.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, November 1st, 2017.
I'm very Eck-like. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
It was an homage. And I'm Michael Angello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Just came over the wire here, and before we get into the games itself, Arizona Coyotes center Clayton Keller, who led all rookies with 9 goals and 15 points in 13 games, has been named NHL Rookie of the Month for October. We've talked about Keller. We've talked about how good of a player we've thought he's going to be.
Yeah, we've been talking about him for a year and a half or more on this show.
So, it's sort of a validation. We knew that this guy was a really good player, and he's sort of proving it right now.
But I also think it's great in a way that he wins this being a minus in the plus-minus column. So it does show you that people understand that he is actually a good defensive player, but his team is not.
Yes. It's tough to not be a minus when you have Aiden Hill as your goaltender, or Louis Domingue with an .856 save percentage.
There's a worse save percentage than that in hockey, Mike. There is a worse one than both of those guys.
I think I know who it is, but remind me.
It's Maxime Lagacé.
Oh, yes. Well,
he's got an .816, which is like hard to believe you could even play in the NHL with that. But
4 goals and 11 shots in his debut against the Islanders. That hurts a little bit.
He gave up another 4 yesterday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game in a minute. Let's start with the Coyotes game. The Coyotes lose to the Detroit Red Wings 5-3.
So the winning streak's over.
The winning streak is over. They're an impressive one. It's ones across the board. 1-11-1 for the Coyotes. And now, okay, they got to win. But the thing is, it could be the most inauspicious win that you can get in the fact that they blew the lead late and then won in overtime. But it's a win all the same. Then they come back next night and they lose to Detroit, who's not one of the great teams in this league. I know that, we talked about Tocchet and I mean, Kevin Allen doesn't seem to think that his job is in danger at all. But I mean, how much rope, if this continues?
Who was in net yesterday?
I believe it was Hill.
I think they are. I think Kevin's right, and I think they are waiting for Ronta to come back. So he's got one more shot with who they presume to be their number one goalie. So I think that's as much rope as he has is with that. I know everybody figures, we'll give him half a season. But what if after half a season they've got 5 wins?
No, it was Wedgwood. Wedgwood started again.
Okay. So what, you know what I mean? Like, what if after half a season they have 5 wins, right? I mean, here's the thing that I took away from Arizona the other night, even in a win. Their power play is disorganized. That's for sure. They have, with the guys they had, they should have a way better power play. Their game plan is great for a couple periods, but then the Flyers figured it out. If you stand up everybody at the blue line and you just and look, it's working against the Leafs too, right? If you do that kind of thing and to disrupt players carrying the puck in the zone and everything, the way to get around that is you either have to pierce the zone, one guy on his own, and go deep and then look to pass it, or send somebody in the corner and when you pierce the zone, get that puck right to him, or even do a few stretch passes to sort of keep him honest. I think it's too easy to beat, and I think teams are figuring this out about Arizona, and because they don't have a perfect defense, they have a good defense, they're getting beat.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to take advantage of a bad defense. I mean, for opponents of the Leafs, dumping it in doesn't really work because they actually have mobile defensemen. It's more pressure. It's more choking off them up the middle. More what San Jose did to them on Monday was basically put 4 across the red line and say, okay, dump it in. And San Jose's bigger, and the Leafs don't want to dump it in. They want to carry it with speed through the zone. And when you keep fighting against that, you keep giving up the puck, and they kept turning it over. Arizona's in the same situation. It's like, I mean, they actually have, if you look at the lineup, they actually have a pretty good defense.
Although we do have to point out, because even the chat room's talking about this, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is banged up. So right now he's not the same player that you're used to seeing. He's playing hurt.
Yeah, and Yarmulson was hurt in Philadelphia, so I don't believe he played.
I don't believe he even played, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was the pairing that they were going to rely on, a lot. And now you've got one guy limping around, the other guy out of the lineup because he took a high stick to the face. The game that you watched a lot, and I have to say I was misdirected by the Vegas Twitter feed because I was watching that game and Vegas was in the lead and Perron scores the penalty shot goal and they're up 4-2. And I'm out, and they didn't have that game on. That was the one game they didn't have on. They were concentrating mostly on the World Series, and I think Arizona-Detroit was on. And the Vegas Twitter feed, I can't. I'm only doing this verbatim. It was like Vegas has only lost games when the score was 6-3, and they says Vegas is, basically insinuating Vegas was winning.
Right.
And the only way that they were going to lose is if they lose the game 6-3.
Ah.
I interpreted that as they had won the game. I didn't even look at the clock. I thought, okay, well, I turned off the game or I wasn't watching the game after the Perron penalty shot. And then all of a sudden I see the Rangers coming back. And
that's where, on Twitter, you do have to sort of be careful by being too cute.
Right, and exactly.
At times last night, I looked at all their tweets today for some reason because I was searching for something, and they were too cute. Like, hey, the wrong team scored. Hey, it's like, you know what? There's a little too much of that, I think. I don't mind having fun. I think they should have fun. But at some point, if there really are people following that Twitter feed because they can't get the game, saying stuff like the wrong team scored and not even putting who scored is you're not doing anybody any favors, even as the opposing team. You're not.
Right. I mean, it was cute, but when you have Shecky Green's understudy doing your Twitter feed, I mean that can be a little bit annoying. Now, you had Vegas leading 4-2 after 2 periods. Rangers come back with 4 in the third. Kreider, Buchnevich, Zabinajad, and Grabner for a 6-4 victory.
Still a horrible win. I mean, it is for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, as you said, Maxim Lagacé gives up 6 goals.
Yeah. I mean, Lagacé, yeah, that's right. I said 4 earlier, but I forgot it was 6. Here's the thing. Lagacé is an AHL goalie at best, and they couldn't really solve him for a while. The Lundqvist did, as pointed out in the chat room, 5-on-5, he played a good game, but he should have stopped the penalty shot. But I always felt like Lundqvist was money on penalty shots, and so I looked it up, and because I was even talking to someone offline when they said he's not that good on penalty shots, and as of last February, he was 6 for 12 or 12 for 6, however you want to put it. And I feel like if you're 50% for a long-term goalie, like what are we, 12, 13 years in the league, I feel like you're above average at 50% on penalty shots because I think the odds are with the shooter. I don't have a definite fact-based thing on that. But I'm just saying I think we see the shooters winning that battle more often than the goalies. But I just saw the size of the 5-hole and just remarked on another show that it looked like John Davidson's 5-hole before he went to the Stanley Cup. I get it. He had that great year. But John Davidson's 5-hole as a kid was the biggest 5-hole I'd ever seen in my in my short hockey life at that point.
You could drive a VW microbus through that 5-hole.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing was, I mean, I watched some of this game and, Lundqvist made a nice save, but then kicked it right out to Riley Smith on the 1 goal. So it was.
But that's the thing. But we've talked about this. So when Lundqvist does the read and react thing, you have to know as his defenseman that he's not gloving everything and he's not stopping the play on everything. And when they're scoring on 3rd and 4th shots, that's on the defense.
Yeah, you got to be able to clear. Yeah, you got to be able to clear. And I guess Riley
Smith was so lazy on one of those that the puck literally touched his stick, and he still didn't do anything to get rid of it. He should not play a top pairing ever in the NHL.
It was on that goal, so he was doing his brother a little bit of a favor.
Yeah.
Now the other game on the night was a 2-1 victory for the Winnipeg Jets over the Minnesota Wild. Matthew Dumba with a giveaway that gets Nick Ehlers the game-winning goal. Connor Hellebuyck is now 6-0-1, Russ. Gee, I wonder who has him in our fantasy league.
I'm not. Now, I think you were at the NHL rookie photo shoot where Hellebuyck was there. Were you at that one?
No, I wasn't.
No? Okay. So something really funny happened in that one. He and I have a picture of it. If I can, I'll retweet it again later. But literally, I guess he wanted to make sure he was going to leave after like the shinny game was over. So he brought everything he had with him down to the locker room, and no one helped him, right? So he literally was a goalie in full equipment with his arms full, walking down steps. It was the funniest thing. A lot of steps in that building, as you know. And so it was funny, man. But this kid can play. Don't ever think for a minute. Again, he might be 25 years old, but 24, 25, but that's still pretty young in a goalie career, and he's still figuring it out. He is.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to pull up because it's the only way with that he can usually convert over to the to show something on his screen, but I don't have the ability to do that, so I'm just going to pull up the picture here and hope that people can see it. This is the jersey released. Let's see if we can you see that?
The contrast on that's a little off. Maybe hold it back a little. There you go. They have an idea.
It's tough. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, it's the reflection from the light is tough. But anyway, if you saw for a brief second there, if you go to Stephen Wino's Twitter feed, you'll see the Team USA jersey that's just released for the Olympics, and similar to the one in 2014, it's got the crest, the small crest, almost soccer-like, which I can't stand, on the top right hand, with the USA going across, and a multicolored arm, white, light blue, and dark blue.
Yeah, it's got flames like the old Bam Bam Bigelow shirt that he used to wear in the WWF.
I said, did they get a sale on these from Dick's Sporting Goods? Because that's really what it looked like.
I will say this. On actual humans, there was a picture that I retweeted on my Twitter account. People want to follow at Sportsology. It looked better on human beings. Now, I will say this. The women's team were wearing them on the ice. No equipment or anything, just had the jerseys on. But it looked like they took the shot from, like, above. So
to hide the arms. That's what they did.
And I don't think I fully grasped how the arms looked even in that shot. And so
it looked bad.
It is weird.
Yeah. Now, strangely enough, because sometimes Hockey Canada seems to follow suit. This time, I saw Hockey Canada, Team Canada's jersey. It was pretty basic, pretty standard, with the red maple leaf with the white. It was classy and nice. Yeah. I don't understand why Team USA has to go really. They try to go modern. They try to go drastic. And you're better off going back and wearing the 1980 jerseys and just, what I'm saying, go back.
That would have been a good idea considering the scope of the way these Olympics are. I would have appreciated that. Yeah,
to go throwback rather than go super modern. Look like
whatever. I mean, we don't know what the kids want, man. Millennials may buy them up like crazy and say, Mike, you know what? Screw you.
Great. Well, screw you.
I was going to say an Italian curse, but then I decided not to. I was going to do the tooth thing.
No, we don't do the tooth thing. We do the arm thing.
But the tooth thing was in my neighborhood. That's not an Italian thing?
I think they do this a lot.
Do that one, yeah.
Okay, in some news here.
Good that we're teaching the kids.
As we're flipping off our fan base here. Yes. By the way, in the chat, if you have any questions, put them in there. We'll answer them at the end of the show. The Bruins have been victimized by injuries this year. Tuukka Rask was out for a while. He's back. Now, David Backes is out 8 weeks. He had to have surgery on his colon. According to John Shannon, it was diverticulitis, which I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's a digestive disease.
Yeah, it's sort of a paralyzing of certain sections of your digestive tract. Yeah. So they have to remove the sections because
we, as normal human beings, would be like in bed most of the time or walking around like not even wanting to work. This guy was playing hockey with that.
Yeah, so I mean
I wish him a speedy recovery. He really is a great guy. He owns a dog rescue outfit in St. Louis, and it's amazing that he completely funds this dog rescue. And so I really do wish he gets a speedy recovery. But this really puts a damper on the Bruins because they're already like a 500 team. They're going to have to call Kenny Agostino back. Like they just literally sent him down yesterday. They're going to have to call him back up.
Well, I know that they mentioned the name of who they called up, and I'm looking it up right now just to make sure. I think it was Jordan Schwartz, who I believe was with Arizona the last couple of years. I mean, for some reason, spelled SZWARZ, not Schwartz is the usual spelling.
Right.
They called him up. So, now I want because I pretend to be in the draft. I interested in the draft, and I am when it gets close to draft time. But that's something that
just like most people. I mean, to be honest,
right? But you're always in it. You do your prospect show on Sirius XM, and you go to see college games and junior games, and you'll be at the World Junior as will I this year. Yep. ISS came out with their listing of their top 31 prospects, forwards, defense, and top 2 goaltenders.
Yeah.
No surprise that the number 1 ranked right now is Rasmus Dahlin, the Swedish.
Especially since Svechnikov has an injury, like that's a no-brainer right now.
Right. Now Dahlin, I believe, is playing in the Karjala Cup, and it's he's definitely going to be in the World Junior.
Yeah, no, he's definitely going to be in the World Juniors. I just retweeted a really nice goal from the SHL. If people want to see it, go check my timeline. He had a terrific goal just last night, I think that was.
The question is, he might, with the situation with the Olympics, he
might
might
play
be
in the Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be a feather in his cap. But this is a guy. I mean, I believe he's 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he's not a small defenseman. Yeah, 6'2", 181. Yeah. He's not small. There's room.
No. He's already got like the framework of a pro body, and I don't think he's going to be like an overly muscular guy. So I think you might be looking at 10 more pounds on him.
Yeah, so you're talking 6'3", 6'3", 6'4", 190, 195, right? Which is, not
good.
Right, it's not Victor Hedman because he's built like a linebacker.
But you don't want everybody like that. Like there is a speed aspect that when you bulk up too much, it does affect you. We've seen this happen in sports. I remember when Tim Tebow became a Jet, they said, hey, we're going to want you to play some fullback. He puts on all this muscle. He can't get out of the backfield. Like it does affect you on the ice the same way if you put on too much bulk.
Now, Svechnikov, as you mentioned, is injured right now.
Probably not going to play in the World Juniors, but we don't know that for sure.
Well, he got injured he got injured about a week ago.
Yeah.
And they said it was a 2-month injury. So there's not a lot of time.
No.
So, yeah, more than likely he's not going to be in the World Junior, but but he's ranked number 2. Brady Tkachuk is ranked 3. That's Matthew Tkachuk's younger brother, the son of Keith Tkachuk. They have him listed as 6'3", 196.
Yeah, that's about right for him. But he's going to be bigger. He's not going to be as big as his dad, but I think he'll probably be around 220.
Yeah.
His dad, let's face it, by the end of his career was probably 250.
Yeah, well, conservative.
Conservatively, yeah.
Number 4.
And I see his dad around. He's a great guy. I'm not trying.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
I mean, he scored over 500 goals. He's an amazing hockey player.
Yes, he is. But you always remember the fact that when he came back from the lockout, he needed a little extra time to get back into shape.
It was widely publicized.
Yes, it was. That's why it's easily remembered.
Yeah.
Philip Zadina from Halifax is listed 4th overall.
Yeah, Halifax has some great players this year, and he's one of them. I don't know if I would have him 4th, but that's okay. It's early. I don't have a great opinion on him yet. I'll be honest.
Now it's funny, and this is somebody we saw at the All-American Prospects game. Oliver Wahlstrom, jumped from 11th in their last ranking to 5th. So
here's the funny thing. All right, and this is where rankings get fluky when you do them so early. A year and a half ago, Wahlstrom was right up in the top 3. Like that's where he was. People were looking at him that way. Then he didn't do great. What was he? He was in the World Championships, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Didn't do great in that, and then was lukewarm this summer in the trials that they have up in Lake Placid. So then all of a sudden Wahlstrom dropped like a stone, and by dropping like a stone, meaning dropping out of the top 5, more like into the top 20. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, in the All-American Prospects game, everybody's like, "Holy crap, Wahlstrom really looks like the player we thought he was," and they were back up there again. And so he's just getting this yo-yo effect, but he definitely could end up in the top 5. I mean, he's that kind of guy. He has that. You saw him play a little bit, so did I, and I've seen him play even before this in other tournaments. He's a very physically imposing guy for a young guy. Like but he doesn't play that way per se because he has a lot of finesse in his game too. But he's a very humble kid for the kind of talent I think he has. When you talk to him, he doesn't even act like he's a guy who is all that talented, but he wants to score, no doubt about it. And you saw at the end of that All-American Prospects game as an example, he took 4 or 5 pretty great shots to try and win that game. And that's the kind of guy you want. And so I think he will continue to inch up in people's rankings rather than go down.
Yeah, I was very impressed. Number 6 is Quinn Hughes, who also shined very, very brightly at the All-American Prospect game. His brother, Jack, was I think he was the fifth overall pick in the OHL draft.
Yeah, and he's wowing them with the under-17s.
Yeah, and he decided not to go to the CHL, but to go to the
When I was covering the USHL Fall Classic, people were going to see him in the under-17s. And, yeah, he was dynamite, and he's been dynamite all year.
But Quinn Hughes, I mean, in that prospect game, very creative, jumped into the attack, very speedy, good, really good hockey IQ. He's 5'9.5", 170 pounds. So
But you don't really notice his size
No.
or lack of it on the ice. That's the funny thing.
He backs people off with his skill and with his decision making. So yeah, I mean, in the defensive zone, it's probably going to be a factor with him being able to try to prevent people from getting to the net. But
he outthinks the competition. That's I think even a greater gift than his speed and his skill is he's a step ahead. He knows what to do before he gets there. He's dissecting what you're setting up in front of him already. And I think that's his greatest gift. So it wouldn't shock me if he goes higher than even what they have him ranked at. If a team is really looking for defense, then he could trump Brady Tkachuk, and it wouldn't shock me. Because again, in this day and age, you're only going to get one shot, maybe two shots in every 10 years at getting a true number one offensive puck moving defenseman who could maybe put up 50 points. I don't think I'm overstating that, because 50 points in the NHL is hard to do for a defenseman these days. And so, how many of those guys are out there? So if you have a shot at that guy, and the argument is, if you have a shot at that kind of guy, does that trump a guy who could score 70 points a year as a forward? And I think it does.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I know people killed me, for the McKinnon-Seth Jones thing, but I never thought Seth Jones was a high point guy. And I think that's where people got fooled, is they thought he was going to be a high point guy, where I knew McKinnon would be a pretty high point guy of his peer group.
I think there's still room for the Seth Jones type of defenseman, though. I mean, he may score 30 to 35 points, but with his size, with his skating ability, he's going to be a dual threat in his own zone in terms of being able to clear the front of the net and get the puck out of the zone and participate in the offensive end. I mean, that's why I was so gung-ho for the Leafs to get Liljegren, because I think Liljegren has an outside chance of being a 50-point defenseman. He's got the skating ability, he's got the offensive ability. It's probably going to take him a year or two to adjust to North America, but I think
once he adjusts to North America, gets a little stronger, gets rid of the few hiccups, once in a while turnovers that he has in his game, he could be that guy.
Okay, just to complete out the top 10 here, Joe Veleno, who was the player who requested exceptional status in the CHL. I think
he thought he was the number one 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, does this smack of a little? I mean, I'm not trying to beat on Veleno, because I've only seen him play once or twice, but doesn't this smack a little bit of Sean Day, where like they requested exceptional status on him, and then he's good, but he's not as great as everybody thought he was going to be?
To be honest, I wish they'd abolish that. I don't like exceptional status. I don't look. At the end of the day, we're rushing kids too much anyhow, and so I don't think it's a good idea when you rush them into that league either. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's fine and it works for Tavares and McDavid, but yeah, they maybe have to be a little more discriminating, because those generational players. I mean, I don't know. Sean Day was monstrous when they gave him exceptional status at 15 or 16. He was 6'2" or 6'3" at that age. So they figured physically he was developed enough to be able to handle himself. So,
but you have to remember the mental side of things too. That's an important thing.
Sure. Number 8 is Adam Boqvist, a defenseman, another Swede, playing in the Swedish Junior League.
Yeah.
Number
Boqvist, I believe he's Jesper's brother.
Yeah, I believe so. And number 9 is another brother of another NHL prospect, Ryan McLeod, the younger brother of Michael McLeod, who's also playing for Mississauga in the OHL.
Where Michael played, right?
Where Michael played. And number 10 is Rasmus Kupari, a center from Karpat in Finland.
Yeah, so for people, I don't have anything on him, or if I do, it's maybe a little bit from like the under 18s. I'm going to have to look at my notes, but I won't get a real good beat on him until after the World Juniors, and then I'll have a good idea.
Yeah, and there's a couple players with NHL connection. I don't know if Riley Sutter is related to the Sutter.
I'm not sure.
Sutter family. I'm just taking a guess on that one, but I do know. Benoit Olivier Gruel. I'm assuming that's the son of the junior coach.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and now Benoit Gruel is coaching the Syracuse Crunch in the American Hockey League. Jack McBain is the son of Andrew McBain, the former NHLer. So you're going to see, and it always really interests me to see the second generation, and we obviously
and there's a ton of them. There really are. I mean, it's just every year now there's a ton of them.
Yeah, and as we saw in the prospects game, Michael Pavanka's son was part of.
Yeah, I think it's Jake, and he's good.
Yeah. So, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yeah, there's one obviously that's going to always, just like with Leaf Talk right now. Once you talk New York Rangers trade, things get crazy.
Okay.
And so, the question is, hold on, I got to find it. Do you think a panic move is coming for the Rangers? Brandon asked this. And is the Shaw rumor real? And this Shaw rumor is really annoying. I don't want him on this team at all. Well, here's the thing. I mean, again, Brandon probably would have said the same thing about Sean Avery, and I think Sean Avery had a good career as a Ranger. I do. Now, he was trying to redeem himself for what happened in Dallas, right? And so I think was Dallas before or after? It was before, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So that kept him in line for a while, and whether he had this love-hate with Tortorella, he still performed. I think Shaw would perform. I think, the salary is a little high. It really is about what you're giving up asset-wise to get him. That's really the key. It's never going to hurt you having Andrew Shaw on your roster, and Rangers fans tend to want to have more size and grit. That's just like a thing that's built into them. But I don't think it would kill them if they picked them up. But again, I'm not giving up Brady Shea to do it. So if they want Brady Shea, that's a non-starter. Now, if you want to go Chris Kreider for Andrew Shaw, that's a tough one because, Kreider at times has just lacked that extra finish that we all thought he had to sort of be like a 35-goal guy. And so
the question is, have the Rangers soured that much on Kreider that they would do something like that?
I don't think yet. And we got to remember, Jeff Gordon is the one who scouted him when he was with Boston, and he was playing in Boston College, I think, Kreider at the time. So he's going to give him a lot of rope because that's his guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy the Andrew Shaw rumor simply because we know that the Rangers, at least in the short term, are looking to plug the hole up the middle that was created by the Stepan deal. And, okay, you can do that. But Shaw's not really. I mean, he may be able to play center, but he's not a great center. I don't think he's a number two. I think at best he's a number three if you put him up the middle. He just joins a group of players that right now they have already that can play center, that can play wing, but probably are better as wingers like Kevin Hayes and JT Miller. And I don't know whether he really improves them a lot.
I mean, Kevin Hayes proved again last night that he is just a mess hockey IQ wise. He just makes some of the dumbest plays. One of the goals was clearly his fault. He just never has a great handle on things. He really doesn't. I'm not sure if one of the goals was his fault or was he the one at fault for the penalty shot because he kept hooking. He may have been the guy that kept hooking on the penalty shot. But either way, he had a horrible game. And he can't play center. He can't. And now that I'm going to look up his faceoff percentage because now that they've revised the rule, I'd be shocked if he has a good number.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you keep talking, Mike. I'm going to look at it.
If the focus of the Rangers, because as we said yesterday, Larry Brooks reported that Glenn Sather, Sean Feld, and somebody else from the Rangers were at the Habs Ottawa Senators game, and that was what sort of spurred along these potential rumors of a deal. If you look at the Canadiens, I don't think Shaw is an answer for what the Rangers need. I think Galchenyuk is more of an answer to what they need, and maybe with the fresh off the 3-year contract being signed, he might even come cheaper than a guy like Shaw because
he would. I think he would come cheaper. Hayes is at 50%, which is 5%. Like almost 5% more than last year. So I'll cut him a break on that. I don't want him to become Kevin Stevens though, Galchenyuk, and that's to me it could go down. The bright lights of Broadway could go down.
And that's all contingent on whether Mario Tremblay was telling the truth,
right,
or whether he was being a sensationalist.
Well, it hasn't been refuted, so we have to assume there's some truth in it.
Yeah, and if that's the case, maybe he's better being traded to Colorado or someplace like that.
I will say this for all the people that saying they need to fix the defense, they do, but they don't need more defensemen. That's not the problem. The problem is Lindy has had no idea what to do with the guys he has. If he just comes up with 2 good pairings, he could figure this out. But clearly this is an issue where their defense is still askew, and I'm still putting a fair amount of blame on him.
I mean, there's no way to know if this was true, but I'll ask it anyway. If they would have lost that game, they were losing 4-2 in the third, going into the third period. If they had lost to Vegas with a 4th-string goalie in net, do you think we would have heard that Alain Vigneault had been fired today?
You know what? I'm now going to say no, only because if really you were going to fire him for those reasons, I would have fired him after this game anyhow, because the same problems existed in this game that have been existing all year, except they got a win because they did play against a bad goalie. But if you think about it, everything that you were looking at was still problematic. When they were down 4-2, they looked as bad as they've looked all year for that up to that point. And so they're a team that does battle back, but the only reason they battle back is because they give it up all the time.
Yeah, and you can't believe that there's a possibility of a trade without them, because if they're actively looking for a trade, that means they're looking to make a move before they fire the coach.
Correct. Usually the trade preempts firing of a coach.
Right. So unless there's any other questions in the chat, we'll go over the tonight's games briefly here.
Go over the one that features the 2 big-time players first, because I want to chat about that.
Okay. There's 5 games tonight, the big marquee match, and hopefully that will not be a reflection of the last time these 2 teams played, because it was a rather dull affair.
It was.
Yeah, it was, for all the buildup of the and by the way, this is not the game on NBC. The game on NBC is Flyers Blackhawks, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, was my big issue. That's my big issue too.
Pittsburgh, Edmonton. They meet twice within a week, and neither game is on NBC.
It's a fail. I mean, it's an abject failure. And I brought it up. I was on Sirius XM this morning, and I wasn't sure what the national game was, and they weren't sure either for a second. They looked it up.
It's a double header. It's a double header.
What's the second game?
Second game is Nashville, San Jose.
I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to build Chicago and the Flyers as a rivalry game because they faced each other in the Stanley Cup, nothing could be further than the truth. And I'm not sure that that's the way they're going with it, but there's certainly it's going to be a storyline the same way they keep showing the anchor bar in football.
Yeah,
it's going to be. They're going to do it. They're going to show the Patrick Kane goal, right? I mean, they're going to do it.
Of course. But no, I mean it's more than that. It's 2 big television markets. It's 2 top 5 television markets, and they'll get local viewers, so they'll get higher ratings. But the game that people want to watch is the best player in the game against the second best player in the game. And I won't say which one is which, but that Crosby versus McDavid. Now, granted, the previous match was boring, but more than likely this one won't be because the first one was.
I'm going to give you something where if I were a dad, which I would be an awesome dad, of course. There's not even a question. Because Kaya would tell you that I'm an awesome dad. Perla would too. She's sleeping behind me. She would tell you. But here's the thing. If I were a dad, I'm glad to see the Tang's really working. Here's what I would say. This game starts at 7, right? The Flyers, Chicago?
8.
Oh, it's 8. What time does the other game start, the Pittsburgh one?
8:30.
8:30. Okay. So either way, you're going up against the World Series, right?
Yes.
But at least with the other game, with the Pittsburgh-Edmonton game, if I'm a dad, I'm going to flip when they're going to like a long break or something's happening in the baseball game to that game so I can show my son before he goes to sleep, because like by 9 o'clock, I guess most kids are asleep. He could see 2 of the best players to ever play the game. And that is a lost opportunity every time you don't show these guys on national television in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, honestly, if maybe contractually the NHL can't do this since it's NBC's night and they're having a double header, but either the NHL, when they did their scheduling, should have not had Pittsburgh Edmonton not be used on NBC and maybe played at a later time on NHL Network, because that would drive traffic to NHL Network. People would want to watch Crosby versus McDavid. Anything is better than it being on, sport, whatever ATTSN PT is, which is what it says on the. I don't know what that is. If that's it's got to be local Pittsburgh broadcast and probably Sportsnet Ontario or Sportsnet Pacific.
Right.
In Canada, it's ridiculous. Well, anyway, so that's one game. As we said, Philly and Chicago is the NBC game. We've got Devils, the Red Hot Devils, the New Jersey Red Devils, against the Red Hot Vancouver Canucks. Nashville and San Jose, and the game that most people in Southern Ontario will be watching, the Toronto Maple Leafs facing their old coach, Randy Carlyle, and the Anaheim Ducks.
So I hear now they're juggling the lines again now for that one, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, okay, Ryan Kessler has been out for most of the year. Ryan Getzlaf is back on the injured reserve, so the Leafs sort of catch a break facing that. But they can't let up against this team because it's still without Getzlaf, without Kessler. They have a lot of talent up front.
They do. And no Cam Fowler. I mean, these are huge losses, and they still have won 4 out of the last 5.
Yeah, and Toronto's got to take advantage of that. Now, Toronto has lost 3 in a row. Babcock, for the 3rd straight game, shuffled the lines. At practice yesterday, he shifted Patrick Marleau to center, which is not where they wanted to play him. They demoted Tyler Bozak to the 4th line. A lot of the veteran guys, especially the ones in the last week or so, the ones who are UFA at the end of the year, have not been playing well. Leo Komarov hasn't been playing well. JVR has sort of slowed down. Bozak has had some bad games and has been shifted to the 4th line. Right now, Babcock is just shuffling through, looking for winning combos. The only line that he hasn't messed with is the Matthews line, because they produced. So
this is a game where Carlisle will definitely play it close to the vest. Will play a tight checking game and try and win this game, mostly with a physical battle, I feel. And players like Maroon will be, shit disturbers in this game and trying to, do things in the crease. I think that's the way they're going, because they are missing 3 of their best players. Who's in net, though? Is it Ryan Miller?
No, it's probably going to be Gibson. Miller played against Carolina, so I would assume it's going to be Gibson.
Okay.
And it'll be Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson for the 11 for the Leafs are 7-5. He's played 11. This will be his 12th of 13 starts. They played McElhinney 1. They're going to play McElhinney tomorrow in Los Angeles because it's the second of back-to-back. But after 14 games, it'll be Anderson 12, McElhinney 2.
Yeah, I get that they feel like they need to bank these early season points, and I appreciate that. But you can't overuse a goalie like that. I know we said that last year, and last year it wasn't that much of a factor. But I think they are playing with fire here, because he does still have a little bit of an injury history. Last year's 66 games were his most. It looks like I'm not a math major, but he would play like 75 games probably this year.
Just a couple little notes.
Is that right? Probably about 75 games if they went with this rotation, if actually kept it the same.
Yeah. If 12. Yeah, I mean, well, they have 14 back-to-back, so it would end up 68 and 14. If they play McElhinney in every back-to-back at least one game, he'll end up with 14 starts. Okay. I still think 68 is way too much for
68's too high, though.
It should be around 60 to 65. Probably say 60 and then 22 for the backup. And that's why I've contended that I don't think Curtis McElhinney won his other game, the one game that he did start against Detroit. But I don't think Curtis McElhinney is a good backup goaltender. I think they have a better backup goaltender they picked up in the trade from Vegas and Calvin Pickard.
Yeah.
One other note here. Elliot Friedman just released his 31 thoughts. It's always packed with little nuggets of information. One that pops out. Friedman reported on Saturday regarding the Edmonton Oilers and their search for a right winger. That essentially, it sounds to me like they're playing Draisaitl on the right side with McDavid. They want to move Draisaitl to center and have a right wing to add a right wing to either play with McDavid or play on the right side with somebody else, so they can move somebody else to play with McDavid. Well, Friedman is reporting that Peter Chiarelli might use Jesse Puljujarvi as the enticing trade chip to acquire a right winger. Now, the thing is,
that's idiotic. No offense to Elliot. Hold on. I hate when you go to a website and it's all video.
Yes. I'll just read the thought here, just to not that I misconstrue anything that Elliot says. He says he talks about Puljujarvi that let's see here. He had 3 assists in 7 games with Bakersfield in the AHL. He might also be Chiarelli's most enticing trade chip. That's a big decision, and unless the Oilers are absolutely convinced it won't work for Puljujarvi in Edmonton, you got to think the player gets another NHL shot first. But thing is as we heard about Vancouver being interested in Matt Duchene and the speculation that Olli Juolevi was the piece that they might dangle to tempt Colorado, a team that's looking for defense.
Yeah, they still haven't traded him.
No, they haven't traded him, and it doesn't mean that Juolevi's not going to be a good NHL defenseman.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that Puljujarvi's not going to be a good NHL forward. But right now, Edmonton may perceive that they're closer than people think they are, and they need that piece right now. And that would be the price to pay for it.
It's not honestly the price to pay for it. It's an idiotic price to pay when you consider what Puljujarvi could be if you're just patient. Again, if you're looking for something, then trade Nugent Hopkins. That's
right. I mean, that's the thing. And especially with so many teams out there, and they
that could use a center.
He did float the idea of them being interested in Kreider, and I would assume that if they're trying to make a deal with the Rangers,
it would be Nugent Hopkins and something.
Nugent Hopkins, right? Exactly, because Nugent Hopkins is making $6 million, but he doesn't have a lot of term left in his deal. Kreider signed an extension last year, I think
6.25 or something.
Yeah, so I mean, they wouldn't be exact, but there would be money going back, money going the other way. So, and Nugent Hopkins would probably be a good number 2 center with them. A number 1 because they don't have anybody who's a number 1 right now. But
so I want to read you a headline from the October 29th Tennessean.
Okay.
Predators UC Saros experiencing early season struggles. Now, this is from an article from an Adam Vingan. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but if I'm not, you're probably not going to like me anyhow, so it's okay.
No, you got it right, Adam Vingan.
Okay. The lead-in is UC Saros was a convenient scapegoat for the Predators' painful loss to the Islanders on Saturday. Such a burden being a goaltender, particularly a backup who sporadically plays. That is his job. Sorry. Saros surrendered a career-worst 6 goals, some fluky, others iffy against the Islanders, dropping his record to 0-3-0 this season. I'm sorry, but this has gone back to the Stanley Cup. And it might be a mental thing now. But again, he's got a 4.36 goals against and an 817 save percentage. I don't think at this point people are picking on him. Those are the stats. That is the way it is. If he's like 0-5, as great a year as Rene's having, the backup goalie could be the difference of them making the playoffs.
Yeah, especially if he's playing 20 to 25 games. Know that it's going to – I mean, if he goes 5-15 in those 20 games, they're in deep trouble.
Yeah, and then now articles are starting to be written about it, and I told you I didn't like him starting the season. I get that they were loyal to him, but the league has changed, and I think the league has changed, and unfortunately a goalie like Saros, a little bit on the smaller side, giving up too much up top, it's too much.
Yeah. All right, well, good show, Russ. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. We'll talk about the Oilers and Penguins and the other games in the league and whatever news that pops up. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.